Hi everyone, I think we are live. I'm just going to quickly check if the audio and video is fine. We were supposed to start 20 minutes ago, but there was some technical glitch due to which I could not come live. So hopefully this is working fine. In case you're able to see me and hear me, please let me know. Okay. All right. Yes, I think I'm live. Okay. So, for those of you who are attending this live event for the very first time, how do these live events go? Is that I explain to you a topic in depth, and you can ask me as many questions as you want by either commenting where you're seeing the live event, or in case you're watching this as a YouTube recording later on, you can just put your questions in the comment section. Or the best way to reach out to me is to actually send me a DM on LinkedIn. Now, today's topic is impact of the mother wound on your romantic relationships. Now, I have spoken about the mother wound quite a lot, and if you are someone who has never attended my free 4-day childhood trauma healing bootcamp, then I highly recommend that you do that because I've explained the impact of the mother wound, the father wound, the different types of trauma, as well as the impact of trauma on your health issues as well, in a lot of depth. And it's a very detailed boot camp, and you will have a lot of idea about what issues you're holding on to and what are the resolutions for it. So in case you have not watched that, you can just go to the featured section of my profile and get there, or you can just DM me bootcamp. Now, when it comes to the mother wound and its impact on relationships, I have found with multiple cases that I've worked with my clients that it's really huge and it's long lasting to a point that the client starts to feel, or the individual starts to feel, that this is what their personality really is. Right? When you don't really heal trauma, it starts to feel like this is who I am and this is what my personality is, and that is how life is going to be like. When in reality, that is not really the case, right? It is the unconscious trauma that is affecting you, and it's not really your personality that is affecting your relationship. So today we are going to discuss the mother wound in depth, and I will keep checking my phone in case we have any questions, and also if it's going fine, because I feel that in between something happens to the video or the audio. Anyway, so what is a mother wound? So a mother wound basically is a wound, that is a trauma wound that starts to form when you do not get consistent and unconditional love from your mother growing up in childhood. Not now, okay? I don't mean what is your relationship with your mother right now, because now you're an adult. I'm talking about how it was like growing up when you were a child, as well as I'm not going to discuss the womb trauma today, but how your mother felt when you were inside your mother's womb also plays a very big role in this. So what do I mean when I say consistent and unconditional love? Now, a lot of times what tends to happen is that people with the mother wound, they feel that I did have a good relationship with my mother, growing up, and she was really loving towards me and very caring and stuff like that. But when we really look at their life in depth, which is what I do in my clarity call when I do a traumagram of my clients, we see that even though your mother was loving towards you, so which means that the unconditional aspect was there, but she was not consistent with her love towards you, which means that you could not receive nourishment from your mother consistently. Maybe she was busy all the time, she was sick all the time, she was exhausted all the time, there were too many kids, she always had to take care of the in-laws. Something or the other was there which separated your mother from you. So the consistency is missing, right? We only look at the unconditional nature of love, and we see that, okay, how can I have a mother wound or a father wound, when in reality that is the wound that is affecting your relationship or your career or your finances. So you have to see that both the conditions are being fulfilled, that your mother was present with you and for your nourishment consistently, as well as unconditionally. Right? For example, it can happen that your mother was always present consistently, but her love towards you was very transactional, or you shared a abusive relationship and stuff like that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how does the motherhood actually form, right? So when there's an absence of unconditional and uh, you know consistent love from your mother to you, what tends to happen is that you start to form the mother wound. Why? Because you have to understand that you are entirely connected with your mother. Okay, from the moment you're conceived inside your mother's womb, she is responsible for your nourishment, right? And she is what represents as your receiving capacity. So when nourishment from your mother is absent, when receiving from your mother is difficult, right, for whatever reason, and the reasons could be, for example, let's say your mother was very emotionally abusive to you, or maybe physically abusive to you. Your mother died very early on, she passed away, or your mother was always very busy with other things and other people, or you had an early separation with your mother wherein you were staying away from your parents, like you were staying, let's say, with your grandparents or your relatives, and your mother and father were staying somewhere else. So what tends to happen is that when any kind of separation is there, right, when any kind of condition is happening where you could not receive from your mother. So another theme I want to mention, by the way, I forgot, is parentification. So in parentification, you are the one who had to be the parent of your mother, right? So your mother relied very heavily on you for her emotional regulation, and instead of her parenting you, you were the one who was guiding her throughout her life, and being parenting her and telling her how to live life. So what tends to happen in such a case is that the love that should flow from the mother to the child, because the mother is the bigger person in the relationship, systemically speaking as well, that does not happen. So when there is a break in the bond with the mother like this, right, as in could not receive nourishment and care and love and attention from your mother, this bond, there's a break in the bond that happens, and this results into a mother wound. So the mother wound can happen through not just abusive relationship, or the fact that your mother, there was a separation between your mother. It can also happen when your mother was there consistently with you, but you had to be the parent, right? You were the parentified child. You were the one who was guiding your mother throughout life. She was completely dependent on you. She's doing a lot of trauma dumping on you. So what tends to happen is that the flow of love is reversed, right? From mother to the child, now it's flowing from child to the mother. So what tends to happen to you? You become barren, right? The nourishment that you are supposed to receive from your mother to feel safe in your body, that nourishment and safety is not there. And what does it actually mean, right? So you have to understand that your mother represents your receiving capacity. At any point of time in our life, it is not about earning what you want, but also allowing yourself to receive. The people who struggle the most in their lives, or tend to who always feel that things are so difficult in their life, usually have a mother wound. Because when your receiving becomes difficult from your own mother, right, that becomes an inner landscape for you, and that is something you project everywhere in your life. Receiving becomes difficult for you in every area of your life. Specifically today we are talking about romantic relationships. In the bootcamp I have covered in terms of career and finances also, and I'll cover more of it. But in terms of romantic relationships, what tends to happen is that when receiving love from your mother was difficult, you replicate that same relationship that you had with your mother, which is you chasing mom's affection, or mom not always being there for you, and you always feeling that I have to take care of myself, in your romantic relationships as well, right? How does that happen? We're going to discuss that more. But I hope you understand that when the mother wound tends to happen, your receiving capacity gets blocked. So when your receiving capacity is blocked, you make it unnecessarily difficult for yourself to receive anything. And how do you do that? You do that by attracting partners who you have to chase. You do that by always doing more and more and more. You are the one who's always chasing, and other manifestations of it that I'm going to discuss right now. Okay, I'm just going to quickly see if we are still doing fine in terms of audio and video. Okay, I think we are doing fine. All right. So let's talk about how can the mother wound actually manifest in your romantic relationship, and how to identify what is the impact of it and what is the depth of it. So the very first thing I want to talk about is the lack of receiving capacity. Now, as I said, right, that when receiving from your own mother, right, someone who represents receiving and nourishment in your life is difficult, receiving in your romantic relationship also becomes difficult. Now, how will this manifest? It can manifest as you being with a partner who does bare minimum for you, and you feel that, oh my god, that is too much, right? So here, you may see that, and you may also have people who may point out around you that, oh my god, your partner is just doing the bare minimum, and you feel that, oh my god, my partner is doing a lot. So this here, you settle for even the smallest of things, right? For example, let's say that your partner is someone who is respectful towards you, right? And when it comes to other qualities, like let's say being ambitious, or being understanding, being empathetic, that is not there. And when you have a mother wound, you feel that, oh my god, my partner is respectful towards me, so that's a big thing, when in reality being respectful is the bare minimum someone can do for you, right? So when you have a mother wound, you tend to settle a lot, right? You always tend to convince yourself that, no, my god, my partner is doing this much, this is a lot for me, right? So you become okay with the bare minimum. You constantly like justify your partner's behavior, even though your intuition may tell you that this is not right, even though your intuition may tell you that you deserve better. But because receiving from the mother has been difficult, right? So your inner landscape is what? Your inner landscape is of the person who finds chasing other people normal, who finds chasing love and living, staying for the scraps of love very very normal, because that was how your relationship with your mother was, right? Your mother could only give you like 10, 20, 30% of her, because for of multiple reasons, maybe because she was busy, she was exhausted, she was, let's say, very critical, she was, different things. So you could receive only 20, 30% of her. So now that is your benchmark in your romantic relationships as well. If someone gives you this much, you think it's a lot. So as a result of this, there's a very high chance that you may end up in relationships where you are giving a lot, you are the one who's doing the chasing, you are the one who's always, making excuses for the other person, the other party, and you're settling, right? And because you have a mother wound, there's a very high chance that you may also attract a partner like that who takes advantage of this habit of yours. Because always remember that an unhealed person will never get attracted to a healed person. An unhealed person will only get attracted to an unhealed, equally unhealed person. So if there is an individual who likes to take advantage of other people, this particular person will only get attracted to people like these who have very low standards, right? And this is a result of the mother wound. So when the receiving from the mother is difficult like that, it means that the receiving becomes difficult from your partner as well, and you are unable to actually recognize it. So what again can happen is that, even though you may see that, okay, yes, my partner, maybe what is happening is not right, I do deserve more, I do deserve better, you may not leave the relationship because your benchmark is so low. Whereas someone who has worked on their mother wound, someone who has healed, will be will be able to walk out of the relationship very confidently because they know they deserve better, right? We stay in relationships based on what we think we deserve. If deep down we believe that we don't deserve more, we will continue to stay in relationships that takes more from us than it actually gives, right? Now, the second theme I want to discuss is not being able to embody the feminine energy. Now, this usually applies to women a lot more than it applies to men. So, see, growing up, your mother represents the feminine in your household, right? The feminine energy is the energy of being able to let go, being able to allow other people to take care of you, being able to trust, being able to have a lot of faith in the masculine in the household, which means that when your mother is in her divine feminine, she will have a lot of trust towards your father when your father is also in the divine masculine. And your mother will feel quite relaxed, will trust, and will feel that she's taken care of. So that's a divine feminine energy. The feminine energy represents the openness and the fluidity of you, right? And masculine energy is the energy of planning and doing and taking charge. Now, if you grew up with a mother who was not in her divine feminine because the masculine side, the masculine energy in your house was not present. For example, let's say your father could not be a provider for your mother. Your father never really supported her. Your father never really stood up for her. Your father disrespected her. Your father did not create a safe space for your mother to enter into a divine feminine. So what's going to happen is that your mother will have a wounded feminine energy, which means that either she will become someone who's extremely emotionally dependent on other people, feels victimized in her life, feels like everything is always goes wrong in her life, or becomes this helpless sort of a woman, or she will go into her wounded masculine energy where she's taking charge of everything. She's the one who is, working in the house also, and she's working outside of the house also to provide for the family because your father is not doing that job. Or even if your father is making the money, she feels so unsafe because your father makes her feel so unsafe. She always feels that she has to be on guard because she cannot let go. She's always scared of her future, right? So when you grow up with a mother like that, you don't see a divine feminine energy in your life growing up. So as a result, what can happen is that you embody the same energy in your relationship. For example, as a woman, instead of being in a divine feminine, you can either be a wounded masculine, which means that you feel you're very distrustful as a person, you don't trust other men, you feel that I always have to be on guard. or you always feel that, oh my god, someone can take advantage of me. You don't trust that other people can actually take care of you, and you have this sense of loneliness, and this sense of aggression, passive and active both. Or you can be in the wounded feminine, just like your mother, in the sense that you feel like a victim, you feel helpless, you always want to depend on someone else, you don't feel empowered, you put up with disrespect from other people. So whatever energy your mother embodied, right, either the wounded masculine energy, right, of always having to take charge. So a very big sign of a wounded masculine energy is a woman who's extremely exhausted, right, a woman who's always working too much. That's a sign of a wounded masculine. And a very big sign of a wounded feminine is a woman who feels helpless in her life, right. Divine feminine energy is the energy who's an empowered feminine. A divine feminine energy is where a woman feels empowered in her life. She doesn't feel helpless, right? So, whatever energy your mother embodied growing up, there's a very high chance that you may embody the same energy. If she felt helpless growing up, you also feel helpless in your relationship. And how does this come about? So, see, what tends to happen is that when there is a mother wound, right? And this is where I want to talk about the third theme, which is unconsciously recreating the same fate and destiny as your mother, right? So when your mother wound is not healed, you don't actually feel close to your mother in your inner landscape, systemically speaking, right? Closeness is not measured in how what is the proximity with your mother, right? You can live in the same house, yet you can feel very distant from your mother. I'm talking about in feelings, in inner landscape. How emotionally close do you feel with your mother? That's what we're talking about. And when I say closeness here, it means that you have actually received nourishment from your mother. So when there is a mother wound, you don't actually feel close to your mother. But when it comes to your life, always remember that, that your inner child will always want his or her mother, right? Your inner child wants his mother, her mother. So when the child does not feel close to the mother through a healed version of him, he will walk on the destiny of the mother to feel close to the mother. It's like saying that, look mom, I'm just like you. Look mom, I'm repeating the same fate as you. Look mom, we are the same. So if the inclusion with the mother does not happen through healing, it will happen through trauma. So you will recreate destiny, you will recreate fate in your life, where you are reliving the same feelings your mother felt. For example, if your mother felt extremely lonely in a relationship, you may unconsciously manifest a relationship where you also have an emotionally unavailable partner like this, even though it's a love marriage, let's say. Or let's say your mother always felt a lot of financial constraint in her marriage, where she always felt that, I don't have enough. You may manifest the same feeling in your marriage, in your relationship, where you may end up attracting a partner who's always financially dependent on you, or who does not take charge of finances, or who always makes you feel that you cannot depend on him. It can also happen that maybe your partner is not like that, but you keep on feeling that lack in your life, that, oh my god, I don't have enough. So basically, the destiny that your mom walked on, right, the feelings that she felt, it can be a very big, there's a very high chance that you may repeat the same thing, right? Now, coming to the next theme, which is having a parentified bond with mother. So, parentification is a theme in trauma work where you had to become the parent of your own mother, and I'm just talking in terms of mother here, but it can also happen to through father. So here, you had to be the parent to your mother, right? She relied on you to guide her instead of you relying on her to guide you, which is how ideally it should be. You are supposed to rely on your mother to guide her. uh, you are supposed to rely on your mother so that she can guide you. But because your mother, because it could be due to inherited mother wound, she also had a mother wound, or she feels very underconfident in her life, or she feels like a victim, again the whole wounded feminine energy and wounded masculine energy. Because of that, she is the one who's relying on you, so this can create a parentified bond. So what can happen is that instead of living your own life, you are loyal to your mother like a child. You live your life according to what your mother will feel and think, because you feel that I have to always look out for my mother, right? And this is not love, by the way. A healthy relationship is where you are able to take decisions for yourself, and your mother and father are okay with it because you are an adult. A parentified bond is when your mother may make you feel that you are the only hope in her life, or that if you do something that hurts her, she's gonna die, or something really bad will happen to her. So you feel unconscious loyalty and even conscious loyalty to your mother over your relationship and over your partner. So your life is completely around what mother wants, What will make my mom proud of me, what will make my mom happy over what will make me happy, right? So this can also result into a lot of traumatic relationships in your life. It can result into a lot of ups and downs because your life is not really yours. You have dedicated your life to your mother just like a mother would to her child, but in reality this is not how your relationship with your mother should be. And this is something that we see in a lot of relationships. Personally, I've seen in a lot of clients who feel this constantly, that I have to take decisions based on what my mom and dad feel, but in reality it's a very unhealthy dynamic. It should not be like that, right? So when your parents, specifically your mother, puts her happiness, responsibility of her happiness on you, she puts that burden on you, and as a child you take on that burden unconsciously, and you keep on taking that throughout your adulthood as well. I have known adults, and I'm talking about 45, 50-year olds, who are in extremely unhappy marriages and who are unwilling to separate because they're afraid of what their parents will feel, and they spend their entire life suffering. That's the impact of the mother wound when you don't heal it. So it is like an unconscious loyalty that, mom, I, just to take care of you, I will suffer throughout my life. And this is because a child's love is very blind, a child's love is very forgiving. So when an unhealed parent, when your parent is unhealed yourself, when your mother is unhealed yourself, she may unconsciously put a lot of her trauma on you, and you start to unconsciously carry it. And as a result of it, you feel this heaviness your entire life. Now, this makes me come to this next point, which is similar to this one, which is where you are carrying where you're carrying her emotional burden on you. Which means that if your mother growing up put a lot of trauma on you, right, around about her family, about her life, about her relationship with her husband, which is your father, it can make you very distrustful. It can make your lens towards the world very, very dark and very, very foggy, where you start to fear relationships, where you start to distrust other people, where you are always afraid of commitment, or you always have some sort of a theme that is following in your relationships. Basically, your experience of relationships is borrowed from your mother, it's not really yours, right? So that happens when you are emotionally carrying your mother's emotions in your body, and this can be very detrimental, because your life is then not yours, it's your mother's, right? So very, very important to see that the things that I'm feeling, or that the things that I'm experiencing in my life, does it really belong to me, or is it something that I've borrowed from my mother? And this can happen when your mother, let's say, emotionally blackmails you a lot growing up, that you are my only hope, or she very dominatingly tells you that, I gave birth to you, you owe this to me, you owe that to me. Or she does not outrightly tell you her expectations, but she does so much trauma dumping on you, which means that she always talks about her suffering, and you've seen her suffer a lot. You start to feel this, you start to absorb her suffering in your body, because what tends to happen is that your nervous system is very connected with your mother growing up, right? So all the pain and suffering that she's carrying in your body, which means that your mother isn't healed, you also start to carry it unconsciously, very unconsciously. Now, the next point is attracting. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notebook because I tend to forget things. The next point is attracting and sustaining a similar fate as your mother in your relationship. Now, here I also want to give an example of a client that I've worked with. I've actually worked with multiple people, but today I'm going to talk about one or two clients of mine so that you have a better idea of how motherhood actually manifests. Before I do, I'm just going to quickly check if there are any questions so far. Okay. We don't have any questions so far, just a couple of inquiries. So, okay, let's move ahead. Now, I want to tell you a story. So, once a client of mine approached me with the problem that he and his wife are separated, and he has a child, and they're facing a lot of conflicts in the relationships. and he feels that his wife doesn't understand him, and the wife feels that my client doesn't understand her, and because of a lot of fights they ended up separating. So he came to me as a last resort that, Rianshi, I really don't want to lose my child, and I don't want to lose my relationship either. I don't know what to do. So I drew a traumagram of him. When I drew a traumagram of him, we found multiple things. The first thing we found is that his father, in when he was like around very little, like around maybe 8 or 9 years old or even younger, his father went to a different country for work, right? While not even 8 or 9, I think he was just 5 or 6 years old, and his mother was pregnant at the time with his sibling. So his father was in another country working, and his mother was alone raising both the boys, right? And throughout her marriage, his mother felt extremely lonely, and she felt that she always had to take on a lot of burden of the household, right? Because the father was not present. And he saw her mother always very, lonely and angry, and a bit dominating. And there was a lot of complaints that his mother had towards his father. Another thing that we saw is that there was conflicts between his parents as well, and there was a very early separation, right, due to circumstances. When we saw my client's traumagram, we saw that my client had a lot of aggression and a lot of anger and a lot of hurt towards his wife, which he did not know how to communicate, even though he could have, because the proximity was close. And similarly, my client also manifested a separation from his wife due to all these fights, right? A very similar theme that repeated in his mother's life. So there was a very big mother and father wound both that my client had, and the relationship that and the mother wound was much deeper, and my client was working on the fate of his mother, right? So he also ended up feeling the same amount of loneliness and alienation that his mother felt throughout her marriage, and that my client was feeling right now. And when we started working on the mother wound, when we started healing his inner child, and when we started working on his trauma, not only did they get back together, like my client and his wife, they also had a much smoother relationship, because my client's blind unconscious loyalty to his mother was not there anymore. So my client was very shocked when he saw how similarly he was repeating patterns in his life, just the way his mother did, right? Just the way his experience of his mother was. So that is what tends to happen, right? When you have a mother wound, specifically an unhealed mother wound, you unconsciously follow the fate of your mother. You unconsciously follow, like there's a blind loyalty towards the mother's fate in order to feel close to her, right? Because as I said, the inclusion will happen. Either the inclusion will happen through healing when you undergo trauma healing coaching, or the inclusion will happen through trauma where you're unconsciously manifesting themes that your mother felt. So maybe a good question for you to explore here is that, what did my mother feel in her marriage? What did my mother feel throughout in her marriage, and how am I manifesting the same situations in my life? Am I feeling the same things my mother felt in her marriage? And you will see a lot of similarities, right? So these themes can carry out in multiple ways. For example, it could be a separation. For example, here, my client got separated. Another example I can give to you of my client is that there's one more person I worked with, wherein she felt very distant from her husband, and her husband, didn't really wasn't really present for her. Like, he was financially dependent on my client, he was also emotionally dependent on my client, and he was of basically no support, right? And my client was carrying the entire relationship on her back. When we did her traumagram, we saw that there was a similar relationship between her parents as well. Her father was the one who did everything for her mother, and her mother was always very passive in the relationship. And in when we did my client's traumagram, we saw that she had both mother and father wound, but she identified with her father more, so she was repeating the fate of her father, right? So that was the same thing she was repeating in the relationship, right? Her partner was also like this. And because she saw that growing up, she never really questioned the dynamic of the relationship. So, what can happen is that you can have an unconscious blind loyalty towards the parent, right? Towards the mother. And this can result into you manifesting the same sort of separations, same sort of situations. And you basically end up feeling the same feelings your mother felt, right? This is like feeling close to the mother through trauma, right? And when all of these themes repeat, when all of these feelings repeat, what tends to happen is that you are not even aware why it is happening, and you start to feel that I did all the right things. But it is very important to know that when you have unhealed trauma, it affects the way you think, it affects your logical thinking as well. You may think that you are being as logical as you can, but if there is a deep seated unresolved wound, those energy and those emotions stay in your body, and it affects every single part of your life. Now, the question becomes, how can you actually solve it? Now, to actually solve it, you first need to heal the break in the bond with your mother, which is the mother wound. And the second thing is you need to do inner child healing. Because when the mother wound happens, your inner child becomes very alienated, right? That is why people who have a mother wound often tends to feel lonely a lot in their life. They always feel this sense of loneliness and they can't really explain it, because your sense of belongingness comes from your mother, right? As I said, that from the moment you're born, your mother's and your nervous system is very tight. So when you don't feel close to your mother for whatever reason, that loneliness becomes a part of you. So you need to heal the break in the bond with your mother to heal the mother wound, and you need to do inner child healing so that there can be proper resolution. How do you do that? You do that through trauma informed coaching sessions. And how can you do that? You can simply DM me coaching, and you can get on a clarity call with me. In the first clarity call, we are going to draw a trauma gram of you, and we are going to do an inner child healing session. Usually that session lasts for about 90 to 100 minutes. And after we get that session done, then we work for longer periods of time, and we work on every single resolution point there is, right? So when we are doing this deep inner work, it's very important that you are honest with yourself and you're patient with yourself. Because if you've been carrying a trauma wound for a very long time, it can feel like this is who I am and this is my personality, but that's not really true. I have had people who are in the 40s and 50s change their life completely after working with me, because they could see their life so clearly. They could see their life beyond their trauma. They could see their life beyond the trauma wounds that they were carrying for so long. So, if you're interested in actually healing your mother wound and healing your other relationship wounds, you can DM me coaching to book a call with me. And if you want to learn more about childhood trauma and how it affects you, you can just attend my 4 day boot camp that is available on the featured section of my profile, or you can DM me boot camp and I'll send you the link. If there are any other questions you have, feel free to DM me about this particular topic or any other. And if you would like me to cover another topic in detail in a live event, I'll be happy to do so. And you can just connect me for that. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. And I hope you got a lot of answers to a lot of your questions. And I hope that you reflect on everything that we've studied today. Bye bye.